So we've just been shown the first look at Sonic X Shadow Generations. The first proper look, that is. I don't really count 5-second snippets of gameplay, as we know it's kind of hard to indicate a full game's quality based on that. Companies tend to want to showcase the most flashy parts of their game first and foremost. You know, pique your interest and then get into the finer details. I feel like that's why Frontier's initial reveal went over so negatively. Just 7 minutes of a guy slowly walking around a boring field. But with Shadow, I am genuinely stunned to see this might be the first time in over a decade since we've gotten the reveal of a new Sonic game met with unanimous praise. And I agree with the masses. What are the odds? What is this? Opposite day? Being a Sonic Team release, that of course has to come with some caveats. The main one being that Shadow Generations is nothing more than an addition to the main 2011 game, with the head of Sonic Team Takeshi Iizuka warning folks to not expect anything anywhere near as long as the latter. So even if being generous, we're probably looking at a 1-2 at most hour-long adventure here. But hey, quality over quantity and stuff. The original Generations is short as hell, and I still have a couple hundred hours on it on Steam. And so if Shadow Generations can provide us with even 5 or 6 stages containing 2 acts each, and maybe a couple bosses, who's to say we won't be replaying this too for the foreseeable future? Especially given the minimal but appreciated additions to the original. Not gonna focus on the remake at all much in this video, aside from right now. Honestly, this is all Kid Me could have ever wanted. A few extra pathways for Hidden Chow, some new moves and a couple skins. Even if I wish there could be more. Really, the only other thing they could have done to the original to make it the ultimate package would have been to create entirely new stages for the post-Generations era. Lost World, Mania, and Forces, particularly Frontiers. There's not many iconic locales in that game I'd want to see return. Oh god, how could I forget? City. I like this game, but who knows, in a perfect world perhaps we'll see something similar come down the line through DLC. I can't complain though, as it seems most of their time has gone into this brand new storyline, featuring Shadow being taken through his own past, with his partial creator Black Doom returning to take over the Earth. I was initially not confident in this project at all upon announcement. The idea of slapping a Shadow storyline onto the original game made with the arguably inferior Frontiers movement engine didn't interest me. But after seeing a glimpse at the full, presumably first stage, the Space Colony arc, I came to a horrific realization. It actually looks really, really fun. That's not to say it's without criticism, however, with many coming out to say that they're still not confident in this project, and that it's yet again another case of Sega taking a step backwards, not learning what worked about Sonic Generations and why people liked it, trying to replicate that with Shadow, instead saying that this is nothing more than another Sonic Forces. But I don't agree with that. Not in the slightest, as a matter of fact. And while not perfect, I think Shadow Generations manages to show a massive step up in quality for the team, and the comparisons to Forces only seem to come from a misunderstanding as to why that game didn't work. Yet this, at least from what we've seen so far, appears to be giving people something that excites them. And so let's talk about it. What we've seen of Shadow Generations, how it seems to be pushing the series out of its decade-long pit of meh, and why Sonic Forces has done irrefutable damage to Sonic discussion online. But first, this video is sponsored by Cook Unity. Cook Unity is an excellent meal delivery service. With over 50 chefs coming from the best restaurants in the country to bring their signature dishes to your table every week, why would you ever want to eat out again? All you gotta do is set your 7 different dietary preferences like vegan or gluten-free, and pick out as little as 4 or as much as 16 meals a week. There are hundreds of options here. The subscription is also super flexible. You can skip, pause, or cancel whenever you want. I really enjoyed the grilled chicken with herb tomato salad made by Chef Nora Nolasco from Los Angeles. And there's a bunch more in here that I'm super excited to try. So go to cookunity.com/splash50 or click the link in the description below and use my code SPLASH50 for 50% off your first order. It's the perfect chance to try Cook Unity out for yourself. Once again, that's code SPLASH50, and thanks to Cook Unity for sponsoring this video. So I think to start, we of course have to briefly cover Forces and why it didn't work. I think the reason why folks, including me, still like to talk about and discuss it despite coming out 7 years ago, need to sit down for a minute, is because it unequivocally showed us the absolute lowest of the low when it comes to the boost formula. See, it's weird. In a lot of ways, I would actually argue that the design of Cyberspace and Sonic Frontiers is way worse to Forces. I mean, just look at them. Cyberspace completely loses all that spectacle that Forces was at least attempting to evoke. And the movement, clearly being designed for open zone gameplay first, feels so slow and sluggish. They're ripping level designs from past entries that this Sonic just isn't capable of traversing in a fun way. Turning while boosting is especially horrid. More often than not, you just have to accept that your best option is either to let go of the boost button to slow down on a dime, turn as quickly as possible, and then proceed to boost again, or just run into the wall and wait for the fun to return. That's not to say Forces is better, and it's because at the very least, Cyberspace feels like I am playing a game. Other than the jerky transition to running and bizarre decision to stick to 8 directions instead of analog, most likely a result of how basic the level design is, making analog movement unnecessary, the Forces engine at the very least had the potential to be fun, not even remotely holding a candle to Generations or Unleashed, but still fun in its own right when you're allowed to actually do things. Where Forces feels, however, is the feeling of constantly being on autopilot. The idea that the game has no trust in the player's ability to get to the end of the stage without them, well, not even holding their hand. There's nothing to hold their hand by. There's simply nothing here. There's no room to find it bothersome or tedious because there's no substance, period. However, when this idea gets boiled down more and more, a Twitter character limit forcing people to sum up why the game is bad in an easily digestible way, more often than not, we see the most common piece of criticism towards Forces come down to one simple factor: straight lines. We've all seen the clip, you can beat almost any Sonic level with one finger. I think most can agree that no matter how potentially good Sonic could have controlled here, it wouldn't have made the level design any better. The game would not be any more fun. And that's why I can at the very least put Cyberspace one step above it, because even if I'm playing as a Sonic that is not all that fun to control, I'm at least asked to do more than hold down the boost button. But because of that dilution of this criticism, it's made it way too simple to not only try and disprove this by pointing out the 5 seconds per level where you briefly are required to interact with the mechanics, but also way too simple to point to any Sonic game, new or old, find a chunk of level where you're not asked to do much and say, "See? It's bad! It's just like Sonic Forces!" Or, alternatively, "See? This criticism is irrelevant because people like this game where you also have straight lines." At that point, nobody wins. You're never going to be on the same page because both of those statements are so simple that they can't be indicative of the entire multi-hour experience. That's why I think it's ultimately pointless to look at the pre-release gameplay at Shadow Generations and go no further than, "It looks like Sonic Forces, pack it up guys, bad game confirmed." Because it ignores so much of what makes a Sonic game, or Shadow game I guess, fun. It's not that easy of a claim to make. In pre-release footage of Frontiers, Cyberspace didn't look bad because it looked like Sonic Forces. It looked bad because, well... And while not without problems that I'll get into in a bit, Shadow Generations at the very least appears to be the best 3D Sonic experience we've gotten since the original Generations from what we've seen so far, most likely due to the involvement of some of the members of that original team. And let's get something straight, that is not a good thing. The fact that it's taken us 13 years to get a game that looks like it could even be close to the magic that was Sonic Generations is embarrassing. We should have far surpassed that now, but, you know. Small victories and all. I think despite Shadow occasionally looking to border on falling into the same gameplay philosophies that plagued Forces and Frontiers, and despite not addressing every complaint brought towards them, for example the homing attack still appearing incredibly delayed and being a huge pace breaker, I think it gets away with it for two simple reasons, those being spectacle and variety. Two things blatantly missing from Forces and Cyberspace. Obviously, we all have a pretty solid idea as to what those two things mean, but I think the best way to convey this would be to cover 3 Sonic levels and how they do, or don't, accomplish these. Those 3 levels being Sunset Heights from Sonic Frontiers, Speed Highway from Sonic Generations, and finally after that I want to go over the Space Colony arc from Shadow Generations. And while discussing them, I want you to keep 2 things in mind. What is this level doing to keep me engaged visually? And what is this level doing to keep me engaged mechanically? Got it? Sweet. So Sunset Heights opens on a burning city with meteors crashing. The stakes are high as there's an active war going on. As we run forward, we see more of the cityscape, including a destroyed bridge and a Death Egg robot rampaging in the distance. We're given a handful of wisps to boost through some enemies as we proceed up some stairs. Meanwhile, Speed Highway opens with us contained within this tiny room, the way out right in front of us. As we boost, we quickly start rapidly descending towards a massive loop-de-loop. It's like a roller coaster in a way. After this, we twist and turn around to lean and start running on the walls of the building, before once again returning to these winding roads. If we fail to dodge the bombs in the wall, we're sent down to a small area filled with robots before going through a tunnel to get sent back onto the main path. Alternatively, at the start of the level, we can jump on this rail as we descend to get onto an alternate route which allows us to completely bypass the roads. We can also time our jump just right to land on the helicopter passing us by, getting a lift to further into the stage. Back in Sunset Heights, we proceed to do a series of small homing attack chains against some enemies. Continuing to do this allows us to grab onto a pulley, which lets us skip by the final hazard, before we're launched into the next section as we continue boosting down to a small circle area filled with robots. after defeating which we move upwards to a loop which sends us right into a 2D section. Similarly, in Speed Highway, we're also sent into a 2D section, as we smash into one of the buildings. If we had taken the bottom right by timing your boost correctly, we're suddenly in a hotel as we find ourselves quickly hopping over obstacles before getting sent out into a small platform which leads us into another 2D section that contains a couple pathways upwards. Ending with the ability to swiftly lightspeed dash your way out of there and launched into another helicopter, taking you to the next area. Sunset Heights now has us running through a 2D section which requires us to jump over a couple spikes and onto some small platforms, as a rail leads us to a lower area where we continue boosting through robots. There's a cool half loop which sends us upwards, with springs ascending us further. With that we go through some rainbow rings and run down a small stretch of road. The level ending here as we run into Shadow, who is statically standing there. For comparison, we are not even halfway through Speed Highway. To sum it up quickly, as I feel like you get the point, we free fall down with the option to land on some platforms if skilled enough, that allow us to bypass running up the building, as we then smash through some glass and are taken down this massive skyscraper. The camera panning around Sonic so we can truly grasp how much terrain he's covering and how quickly, as well as the police robots right on his tail, as we quick step away from oncoming obstacles. We land in a parking lot where we again have multiple ways of advancing, either drifting around the structure or barging through this boarded off area, which gives us a quick wall running segment before we're suddenly put on the main road. We boost into a short 2D section with a few methods of traversing before getting sent onto an approaching rocket, which then lands us onto another road as we continue to drift around tight turns. We're sent onto another wall, there's a short segment of bashing robots to grab a pulley, as we end by jumping on a row of rainbow rings, which we can then do tricks on to acquire more boost, which lands us perfectly on a group of dash panels, sending us through a small corkscrew leading towards the giant rainbow gull ring. And with that, Speed Highway is completed. Sonic Generations has 18 stages, 9 for Modern and 9 for Classic, that all, at the very least, match this level of quality. Sonic Forces, on the other hand, has around 27 levels, that all at the very least match this level of quality. Despite both using the same formula and having a generally similar control scheme for Sonic, Generations uses this to consistently excite the player, providing them stages that deliver on the spectacle and variety. You're always doing something new, being the prime example of easy to learn but hard to master, making it the perfect speedrunning game, whereas Forces feels as if its stages never even get the chance to start attempting what Generations does for every level. And Generations isn't just a good Sonic game because of how open it is, how many pathways there are. There's nothing inherently wrong with having a more linear Sonic game. You know, Unleashed is a Sonic game that I would argue also has a lot of moments of running straight, but it differs from Forces in how it uses its linearity to challenge you. You have to know these stages in and out. The movement is so fast that you always have to be on your toes and anticipate what's coming next. And so the moments where you are mostly running straight, avoiding oncoming obstacles or simply watching the game play itself for a moment, feel more like breathers, moments for you to regain your footing and prepare for what's to come next, instead of the game not trusting you to, well, play it. Generations is good in my opinion because it toned down on that to focus more on an open design, with alternate paths everywhere that send you into entirely different segments of the level. You can play each and every one of these stages 5 times over, and there's going to be at least something different about each of those playthroughs. But there's no one way to make a boost game work. Both of these methods have brought stellar results, and it's why I don't mind Shadow Generations not entirely adhering to what the original did, not following entirely in its footsteps. And it's because that doesn't automatically mean what it's attempting isn't without merit. And it's because no matter what, Shadow Generations, from what we've seen so far at least, still manages to keep what, in my opinion, are the most important aspects of a good boost game, and that is, say it with me now, spectacle and variety. We open on a close-up of Shadow grinding away from the Space Colony Ark, as we approach a set of platforms. We can see a rail above us as we land, indicating that, if faster, we could land in it to take us further into the level. If not though, we rush down a couple straight paths before approaching a group of gun robots. We can either chain off them to get sent off to the next section, or simply slide through a set of boxes to let the springs bypass it for us. From here we run up a wall using the anti-gravity mechanic, and are given the options to either homing attack a set of meteors, or again, run through the green platforms and use the springs to get there instead. If there's something worth noting about many of the alternate paths in this stage, it's that most of them don't take you off the beaten path for too long, merely being another means of getting you to the same place. I feel like there's still enough here that do take you to a substantially different area to make up for it, but I still think it's worth mentioning that the mere inclusion of an alternate path doesn't automatically make it good. It should also offer a difference to how you approach the level, instead of just being a case of, well, do I want to walk down the left road or the right road? Again, that's not to say that's a major issue I have here. Actually, I think the sheer amount of these short detours do more than enough to warrant their inclusion. They're everywhere and usually offer at least something different. It's not just a case of jumping at the right time to get sent through a string of dash panels that's next to pointless, as otherwise what you're doing is boosting down a set of dash panels. The illusion of choice. After going through a few more of these segments, real grinding followed by a short action segment with a couple routes to go down, I'm being sent through a tunnel that I hope we can do a 360 turnaround on, please. We're introduced to Shadow's Chaos Control ability, freezing certain objects, which can either be used to help you get through tight squeezes, or allow you to not stand on them, which you can then use to reach different areas and get through the level faster. Something as basic as this, if used right, along with Shadow's other confirmed abilities, I feel like are going to do wonders in giving these levels variety, as it also appears using specific ones can allow you to see hidden routes, such as the Chaos Control letting you now see a string of rings you can lightspeed dash across. I'm hoping you can come back to previous stages with your new abilities and have it offer even more new pathways to traverse. That would just be the cherry on top. After giving you multiple chances to exploit this move to your advantage, we're given our first QuickTime event where we have to mash square a bunch to destroy a missile, which while visually cool is bound to get repetitive on repeat playthroughs. I can at the very least appreciate it only taking 10 or so seconds, unlike in Forces where these could often feel like they're taking up a quarter of the full stage. With this, we freefall into the area's interior, giving us a location similar in look to Crazy Gadget, with chaos creatures and multiple higher routes you can get to by boosting off ramps. BB steps and all, but I appreciate them letting you attempt to boost off stuff using your momentum, and I'm so happy to see the return of Shadow's Chaos Snap move, which in 06 allowed you to teleport through lasers. Dude, I had no idea this existed until like 2 weeks ago when I was playing through the 06 Extra Hard Mode DLC for a future video. I was standing there not knowing what to do for like 20 minutes, it was so fucking finicky in that game. We're then put in a relatively open room, which seems to have at least 3 or 4 different options of getting you to the next area, all varying in difficulty. And with this, we're sent through another reel grinding segment. Love that we get to see other reels scattered around, which lets you know of just how many different ways of getting here there are. From here we meet Doom's Eye, presumably for the first time, and are transported seamlessly to Radical Highway, in which we primarily run down straight lines with the occasional alternate route offered to you. A lot of criticism was drawn towards this, but I personally don't mind it. Not only since the terrain is constantly curving in and out, really wish we could have seen the return of the drift here, but not only are there opportunities to get on different pathways, not only is there constant visual spectacle, with Doom's Eye flying around taunting you as the city morphs like a kaleidoscope, but also because of the short bits of gameplay variety we see too, sliding down a twisting building as we're given the option to jump off ramps to get to dash rings. It's not super involved mechanically, but again, it's that constant switch up, that feeling that every minute you're seeing something new. From there, we're sent to a small area where we have to defeat 5 robots to whack into Black Doom, in which we're awarded with the Shadow the Hedgehog logo. Weird. And we're once again dropped into the Space Colony arc, us free falling inside and being met with a gold ring, bringing us to the end of the stage that, on average, takes around 5 to 6 minutes to beat. Damn! That's not even to mention the bosses, the open zone hub world, or the improved animation quality. Jesus, where was this Sonic team when Frontiers was happening? It looks fantastic. So much personality was put into these animations, I love it. I guess, this is all to say, I was proven wrong. Not that I don't think we had the right to be skeptical, let's be real here. But hey, when they do something that impresses me, it's also worth bringing attention to. Where Shadow Generations potentially takes a step back physics or level design wise compared to the original generations or even Unleashed, I think they more than make up for it with the spectacle and variety. The Chaos powers especially seeming like such a fun shake-up that opens us up for way more gameplay opportunities. I cannot wait to see what they do with them. Just because something on the surface level may appear to be like Sonic Forces, doesn't mean it's worth ignoring everything they're doing to stand apart. Every addition they're including that Sonic Forces didn't even attempt to contain. How much genuine effort and care they seem to be putting into this entry. To the point where, genuinely, never thought I'd say this, I can see the positive word of mouth potentially leading us to getting our first Sonic spin-off game since, well, Shadow the Hedgehog. We'll have to wait and see, of course, but for the first time since Sonic Generations, I think I am fully confident in Sonic Team. I truly believe that they will deliver. Please don't disappoint.
All hail Shadow, heroes rise again, obliterating everything that's not your friend. Nothing can stop you now, no ghost will bring you down.